Good evening, Professor. As you can see, I am currently on the clock here at Wegmans in Cherry Hill, and I will be doing my 10-minute video on the presentation and how my interview that I had with my interviewee correlates back to OB. I'm going to just say right now, I am closing the store, so it is quite possible that throughout this interview, I might get a phone call. If so, I'll just make the video a little bit longer just in case. Nevertheless, to start off the interview, I reached out because there was an individual that worked in the meat department here that actually knew a lady named Brianna. She used to go ahead and shop here all the time. She still does, but she used to be a nurse for a couple years and then went ahead and became an FBI agent. She was lucky to go ahead and get into her dream spot, which is here in Philly, or not here, but in Philly, which is right across the bridge from here in Cherry Hill. So that's the start. In terms of the interview itself, I reached out to her through a phone, and then I sent her over a copy of the interview questions, and she went ahead and forwarded them back to me so I can go ahead and get it in for the assignment. I do have to say that reaching out to her was very easy. Just called her one day, told her that I was, a student at Rutgers and that I was looking to go ahead and interview her, to go ahead and get her advice and just, ask her a few questions about her job and correlate them to these questions that I have. And she just reached back out to me and gave me what I needed. In terms of leadership and the things that she has to deal with at work. 1 second. Hey, it's Jay. Got it. All right. Have a good night, Trish. No problem. Bye. So, first off, from what she was speaking about her unit and the role of leadership, she talked about how it was very task-oriented. And so, more along the lines of like empowering people within their own areas within the unit to go ahead and take ownership of the roles that they have within the unit. And, of course, holding everybody accountable. That was something that she talked about a lot too. In terms of how we could go ahead and relate this back to OB, I would say that there are the 4 different styles that we have for teamwork. And so, you have your people that are lone wolves, you have your people that are like the free floaters. But in terms of her unit and how they operate, though they are very accountable and they do separate things, all of it leads back to the same task, depending on what it is that they might be doing. And so in terms of connection with the team, it would be that they are both sociable and also interconnected. So that's one way that it relates back to OB. I remember us talking about that in class. In addition to that, so that means that realistically that the people on the team, they're not lone wolves, but they work interconnected with one another to go ahead and help each other, and they're networked. So that's one thing that I remember talking about a lot. Another thing I remember she told me was just communication itself. So of course, with the things that she deals with, it's very confidential. She can't really speak about a lot sometimes. And this area of the conversation, she couldn't really tell me too much about, just between communication, other than, like when communicating with others, within her unit, simple, just back-to-back communications. But some things might have to be encrypted depending on what it is that might be talked about, just because national security and having security clearance, it means that some things, just can't be talked about. And so since some things can't be talked about, that was one area of the interview where I didn't get too much information. We also talked about conflict resolution. And I remember talking about this in the interview podcast that I had with the team as well, but when she would have conflict with somebody else within her unit, it was really just her leaders, and her leader for her unit. He would essentially go ahead and just give them like a reality check realistically, because leaders are able to go ahead and, I wouldn't say be autocratic with the way that they handle leadership within the unit, but it's essentially, I am the leader, and look, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what it is, what it isn't. And I mean, she was telling me about the past disagreements that she'd had with previous people, and some of it had to deal with how to handle sensitive information. But essentially her boss told her that they need to both have a reality check, and they're saying that when they're both out there in the field, that they have to go ahead and actually be concerned about one another, and know that they're putting their lives on the line if they are not going to be cohesive and working together. I know another thing that we talked about a lot was motivation, and I remember one of the big goal drivers of that was the fact that she was able to get the job location that she wanted, and she was fine with the fact that she would be working anywhere from 50 hours plus some a week, but because she was in her area that she wanted to be in, it meant that she was able to go ahead and handle things the way that she wanted to handle things, because she was close to home, so she was close with family. This ties back to OB in the sense of it gave her the ability to have a good work-life balance, where she could go ahead and have that commitment to work, but also that commitment to outside things that work together. So in terms of how that would relate back to OB, it would be more of a effective commitment, just because it's not a continuance commitment. She doesn't have to, she doesn't feel obligated in the sense that she has to stay there with them, but she's more like, since she does get to have that connection both with her family and then also the connection with work, she has a great work-life balance. And since she has a good work-life balance, she's able to go ahead and maintain a healthy relationship with those around her, as well as staying focused on the task at hand when she is at work. And then another thing that was also a big goal driver for her in her career was, because she is a special agent, that her pay range was pretty well, and she just gave me the standard numbers off of what you could find via looking it up on ZipRecruiter or anything like that, or the FBI webpage. But her salary was, when she was telling me, like, started at 6 figures. So to be young and being able to make 6 figures as a special agent in the FBI, she said that was something that was a big motivation driver for her. So it would definitely be monetary, if you were to relate that back to OB. In sense of organizational culture, what she essentially told me was that it was a culture and where it was a complex structure. So I know when we were talking about in OB, there were simple structures and complex structures, and a simple structure would be something like the example that we had, where there was the diner restaurant, and you had the owner and then just everybody underneath it, where it was just that one head at the top of the leadership, and then you had everybody else at the bottom, and they all fell in at the same. And it was kind of like, if one person were to leave or call out, that other person that was also on that same level could go ahead and handle that as well. That's definitely not what it is at all with the FBI. The FBI is more of a complex structure, almost back to the example that you had given, where if you were in charge of making a certain chip, for example, that if you didn't come in for your shift and they didn't have somebody that could replicate that job that you have, it's something that, would just not be able to get done at that moment. And to relate that kind of back to the FBI in a sense, you have your forensic scientists that work in the FBI as well. So let's say, for example, a forensic scientist were to go ahead and not come in for their shift, or like, the odds of that happening are very unlikely, but let's say hypothetically that it were to happen, it's not like you could get somebody from the accounting team or the accounting unit of the division to go ahead and go step in for that forensic scientist person, because their jobs that they do are so task oriented and focused in that one specific area that they can't go ahead and go over to a different area and go ahead and do it that way. So going back to OB, this would be more of a complex structure, just because of the fact that you're unable to go ahead and have somebody from a different department go ahead and handle something in a different department, like for example accounting to forensic science. In addition to her organizational culture, she did say that she has her unit leader who she responds to, and of course that's how the chain of command goes. And I don't remember at the top of my head the example that was given that you had talked about, where you have a situation where you would have two leaders giving you instructions for one, for two separate tasks, and you report to two different managers. But in her circumstance, she has one person, her unit leader, who she responds to. She doesn't have another person going ahead on top of her as well. And that's one way that it does relate back to OB. In terms of stress management, she told me that a lot of the stress that she does have at work isn't a hindrance stressor. That's one way that it relates back to OB a lot. Hindrance stressors as, something that is out of her control, just about. She makes pretty good money and she lives in the city, and so she's not stressing about, when her next meal is going to be or when something like that's going to happen. And when we talked, she said that she more has challenge stressors with her job that actually are beneficial to her, because she feels like it helps her learn how to go ahead and be more functional at work. I'm trying to go ahead and get the best words for this, but she essentially was saying that because her tasks change from day to day, she's not always having the same challenge that she has to face at work. And so, when it comes to hunting people, or like hunting down the bad guys, you could say, she was saying that it's more of a challenge stressor because you have to follow the clues and things of that nature, and work up, doing stakeouts and things of that nature to go ahead and get information. So it's not really much of a hindrance stressor, but more of a challenge stressor, where it helps her, and it's something that actually is a motivator for her job. She actually enjoys having these challenge stressors because it helps her with her job performance, and that's one big way that it does relate back to OB. That is my little summary of my interview. She was happy for me to reach out. I'm very grateful that she did reach out back to me, and I'm grateful for such an amazing time in your class this semester, Professor, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your winter break. Bye.